Marshall in the middle.
Exit Realty 14.
What's going on? How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm
I've been
doing
looking
great.
forward
So
to
good to
this.
see you. It's been exciting for me too. I've been like, golly, I haven't been interviewed ever.
Well, that's what I want to kind of start off with. We're gonna talk about a lot of different things. So I've kind of prepared a couple different things here, and I actually want to actually start first. I want to say, man, I commend you for just doing this. And I think about it in a larger piece that there's several different branches of the army. You've kind of taken this on your own to do this from an air defense perspective, I should say. Um, and it's just an amazing um, thing that you're doing. I mean, like really, you've put a lot into this. You put a lot of. I know people don't understand the hours that it takes to prepare, present, expose, do all this other stuff to probably do this. And I just want to start off with the first question: is what made you do that?
So there was a point in my life when I realized that I had the technology available to call my buddies and record it. And that it was something that just didn't seem like I could let it go if we had that kind of ability and I wasn't doing it. And about that same time, my buddy Rob Maggot, the jump master black hat extraordinaire, first sergeant retired, El Paso living right now, guy, I got a call one day and he couldn't remember things and he was in the hospital and they found out that his short-term memory was not very good, but he could still remember things from back when. And so I'm like, I got to call Mags. I got to call him and we got to get some of these stories down on tape. And that's kind of where it started. And I ended up talking to Command Sergeant Major Adams. I ended up talking to retired Captain James McCormick. He's a Silver Star winner, 3 Purple Hearts. I talked to Craig Evans, my buddy, Bishop Chris Parker. Those were some of the original ones. I talked to one of my old jump master black hat buddies, and we sat down one night, and I just tried different ways to get the story down, and then it kind of set up on a shelf for a little while. That was 2017 that I first started with it. And then recently, Sergeant Mason, one of my soldiers from 2180A, we deployed. We were together. When you look back on it, 3 years I was with this man, you know, and and I found out that I don't. I mean, I guess he was friends on Facebook and stuff. But you know how you lose touch and you don't see everything that's in your feed. You don't see it. And I find out that he's in hospice and he's got esophageal cancer and he can't talk. And I'm like, why? What am I doing with all of this stuff? And so that's what kicked it back off. And Benson and I talked to Benson, I talked to Diaz, I talked to Chris Fleming. Those are all buddies of mine or soldiers of mine that I've been in. We've dreamed about doing things, something for a long, long time. And so I reached out to them and we kind of put something together. I'm getting a message that my internet is unstable. If you lose me, I'm just going to keep right on going. And we'll figure it
I
out in the
got you.
end. I tell you, I feel drawn to do this work. I feel such an excitement to do these interviews and to edit them, and I cry at almost every one of them, whether it's a
Wow.
slideshow or the interview itself. Because I mean, every person I interview, there is a deep emotional story that they're telling.
Right.
Josie Laposa, 6 months prior to her being a soldier in our formation, mine, your formation, she was stabbed by her aunt and doused with gasoline and about to be set on fire.
Mm.
She was saying her last prayers, and 6 months later, she's a private in my formation,
Wow.
uh, Major, a colonel retired T.W. Williams talks about, the disappointment of being a garrison commander.
Wow.
It's hold on just a second, right? But he's also sitting there saying that he played guitar with Alabama on stage. What?
Yeah.
He's sitting there saying that he lost two of his civilian workers that were his peers in the Pentagon attack. He was there. He talked about losing his wife to cancer. He talked about losing his son to suicide.
Wow.
And this is a guy that was handpicked to bring the Avenger into our formations. He was. Just his story is amazing. So, Ben, all of these stories, those people, all of us have a story, and to give my heroes a chance to tell me a little bit more about themselves, that's so cool, right?
It is, man. But it takes a very special person to make it happen. It takes a very special person to visualize this all the way through, and your passion for it is just, just amazing. It says so much about you, and I got the highest respect for you, man. In before all this stuff, I had the highest regard and had the highest respect for you, which probably is a great segue into tell me something about Will Marshall, the kid. How did where were you raised?
Oh yeah.
Uh, how was your childhood? What was it like? Brothers, sisters? Um, was it rural? Was it on a farm? Where was it at? Tell me about where things happened began for you.
Yeah, so I grew up on Randolph Street in Dothan, Alabama, inside the circle, south side, a block away from Cloverdale Elementary School. It was a dirt road, but it was part of a subdivision when I was first born. We paved the road in the subdivision, I guess, when I was 3 or 4. The other road on the other side of the house, it was paved. That was Highland Street. We lived on the corner of Randolph and Highland. My dad worked at Fort Rucker, and he drove a little Volkswagen, and I just remember being a blessed kid. I had grandparents, I had cousins. We would go to grandma's house on Sundays, and we would go to church. And dad was a youth minister kind of guy, and mom played the piano in church. Rode bikes and played basketball and had crushes on the neighborhood girl. Would go down and play basketball with her dad just to get close to her. That kind of thing. And I went to elementary school. I was part of the segregation of my city. It was interesting. My parents, we lived in a white subdivision that was a block away from an elementary school, and we were lived there for that reason, so that I could grow up and walk to school. From first grade to sixth grade, I could walk to school. That's part of the draw of the house. And when I was in, I think, third or fourth grade, somewhere around in there, they decided that I needed to go across town to another school because it was part of the segregation thing and the buses. And oh my gosh, I will never forget the ringing of hands and consternation. And you would have thought, especially not my parents,
Mhm.
but those that were around were just like, losing their minds. And my dad pulled me aside one time and said, that's not, what we think. We don't believe these things. This is silly. We are in favor of what's happening here in the big picture, and this is why. And that was cool. That was awesome. He did say, "Don't bring home a black girlfriend." That's what he did say. That was the only thing that my dad looked at me in the eye and told me, and it was so confusing to me. It was just a baffling to me to think about that was the rule. Out of all of this, that's the rule.
Wow.
And you know, but it was a great childhood. So we bust and win, and I had a time when I quit a football team. That was interesting. I walked away from practice one time. Never went back. But I never played football again after that. Yeah,
Why was that?
yeah.
Why was
Yeah, I don't know. It was you're a kid. You're a kid. The testosterone's just starting to come in. I don't know what it was. My dad was away on a business trip, I think. And man, we were doing wind sprints or going up the hill. I remember going up the hill. Dude, we'd been up this hill like 10, 12 times. And people were falling out. And they're just like falling out. And I wasn't going to quit. But he kept pushing after everybody else was still going. There was 4 or 5 of us that were still, and he was like, I don't know. It was just weird. And I went to the point where I overexerted myself and I got scared. And when I got up off the ground, I picked up my helmet and away I went. And they tried to stop me, but I'm a 13-year-old kid. We got my helmet, and my pads, and I'm walking home. And I did. It's like 3 miles, but I walked the heck home.
wow?
But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, yeah. So that's some things. And
It's
by the way, when
amazing.
I cry, I feel like I'm in heaven. I got to say this, okay? Please don't think that I'm trying not to cry or cry. I have learned enough about myself that I am a crier, so I embrace it in some way. So don't feel bad for me or think that I'm in
No,
pain.
no, no,
No,
no,
I
no.
I almost feel like when I cry, I'm in heaven. Honestly,
Okay. Well, you go be in heaven a couple different times probably today. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and do it.
that's funny.
Which
That's
kind of
funny.
just you said a couple different things, and so did you continue? Did you ever play sports again, or what happened to your, you know, what happened
Um,
with that?
yeah, that's in sports turned into water skiing for me.
Okay.
We had a place at the lake, and I had access to skiing and water skiing, and I was good at it. And so I did it wasn't like there was a circuit of competitions, but I did a lot of practicing, and and tried to. That's where my focus went was water skiing, and and chasing girls around. You know how girls become whatever the girl wants you to do and your girlfriend, that becomes part of your life when you're that age at some point, a teenager. You're like,
Gotcha.
I have a girlfriend and so she says we're doing this and so that's what we're doing. Mom, can I do that?
Yeah. So where did the desire for the army come into play in this path? Where did that come from?
Yeah. I always thought that I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. I grew up around Fort Rucker, Alabama, where all the helicopter pilots are trained. And when I was 16 and went to get my driver's license, I discovered that I did not have 20/20 vision, which at that time immediately threw you out of the flight program. And I'm gonna tell you, at that point, I immediately didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I was like, it just kind of shot me for a loop. And so the only draw from that point was Auburn. I wanted to go to Auburn. And but then we moved to Orlando, Florida, before I graduated from high school, and so there was no in-state tuition to go to Auburn. And so if I wanted to go to Auburn, I could, but I had to go like live with grandma for a year and go to community college or something.
Right,
And
right, right.
I was a smart kid and I had good test scores and all that stuff. But I was one of the grads. I wasn't an honor grad in high school. I wasn't that guy at that point in my life at all. But so I was working at Disney. So I got graduated high school and started working at Disney World. I was excelling. I was a head Mickey Mouse dude. Not really, but uh,
That's
I
something we
sold
didn't know.
yeah, I sold ice cream and popcorn. And my sister actually, I did. I failed to mention I have a younger sister. She's 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
Her name is April. She is a dance teacher. She's a high school dance teacher. She
Okay.
just turned 50. She's been teaching dance for 30 years. She is
Wow.
award-winning, amazing. She's known that she wanted to be a dance teacher from the time she was 3 years old, and it's just amazing to watch her work. And
Wow.
so, where was I? What was I talking about when I got talking about my sister?
He's talking about Mickey Mouse.
Mm.
You was a head
Right, she
Mickey
was a
Mouse guy.
character. Yeah, she was the character at Disney. She actually did the little chipmunks, Chip and Dale. She did Pluto. Was one of her characters, the little dog, and so she enjoyed that. She did all the parades and all the dances and stuff as a dancer. She actually worked with. Golly, I can't think of his name right now. She knows him, like big time knows him, like the guy that does whose line is it anyway? The black comedian guy. He did. He's doing that show. Gosh, what's his name? Anyway, don't worry about it. No big deal.
Okay, all right.
It's a cool. It's a
So,
cool guy. He's a cool guy. I'll think of his name sometime. I'll edit it in.
so
It'll be
where the original question was, how did this translate in you coming into the army? What
all
happened
right.
there?
All right. So I'm hanging out there at Disney World, making more money than I thought I could ever, spend at it. I was making like $7.25 an hour, working
Oh,
at
wow,
Disney.
that's big
Yeah.
back then.
I had a 1982 Royal Blue Vet, right? Four
Wow,
speed. Chevette. Now you Chevette. Don't think that it
Chevette.
was a Corvette. A lot of people think it's a Corvette. Okay, that's not what I mean. A Chevette.
Chevette.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And I was riding in high style, but I had my Blah Punk stereo in it, and my speakers in the back, rocking that George Strait and Alan Jackson country music stuff. And Dad going to community college or pretending to go to community college and working at Disney. And the grades came in one day, and Dad said, "Hey boy, come here. These grades. What's up with these grades? It's like this semester the only course that you scored anything in is water skiing, and you got an A- in water skiing.
Well,
What's
brother,
going on here?" And I'm like, I don't know, Dad. Maybe I don't know next month. So I shipped my butt on down to the recruiter and saw the recruiter and signed up with the recruiter and went and joined the army.
so tell me what happened then. So you joined the army. Uh, where'd you go to basic training?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So Dad says go just do 2 years and get the little college fund, and then at least it'll get you started, right? And you can
Yeah.
use
Mhm.
grandma's address and in-state tuition. You'll be good to go. So
Right.
I go down, I take the little ASVAB thing, and my little guy's high-fiving and stuff. Everybody, my little recruiter, he's all happy. I scored a 99 on the ASVAB, and he was all happy. I had all these really, really high scores and stuff, and he was like, "Man, you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want. You can do anything you want." So he started showing me all this stuff, and they had them video discs back then, and they started putting them in, and I had met this guy that was at the reception station. It turned out he lived like two couple miles away and went to the rival high school and stuff. He was like a year older than me. His name was McDade, and we ended up buddying up and talking and stuff. And I came out of the room after I'd chosen my MOS, and they'd shown me all kind of stuff. We looked at satellite stuff. We looked at radio comm stuff. We looked at 11 Bravo. But I saw that Vulcan, which was the 20 millimeter, just shooting bullets up, and I was like, "That's it right there." Plus, you ride, yeah, that's it. And so I signed up for that. I came out of the little thing and told the guy that's what I want, and I came out and told McDade. I said, "Hey, this is what it was." I gave him the code 16 Romeo, whatever it was. And so he's like, "All right." And so he goes and signs up. And then a few minutes later, we're out in the smoking area chilling out. and excited, Oh, wait, you know how young guys talk about. You don't know what the heck we're talking about. We have no clue what we're talking
I have
about,
no
but we're
clue.
talking about something. Yeah,
Think you know
and
everything, but don't know nothing.
oh yeah, and so this old, looking back on it, is a crusty old sergeant first class, and he's got these master parachutist wings on his chest. He comes out and he lights up a cigarette and he's listening to us talk and he's smoking on a cigarette and we don't. I mean, we're like, we didn't know if we were supposed to salute him or sit down or stand up. Kind of weird kind of thing. We're like trying to play like we're in the army and stuff. And finally, he comes over there and he snuffs out his cigarette. Right as he's snuffing out his cigarette, he looks at us. He goes, "Who here? You guys going airborne?" And we were like, no, I don't know. And he's like, "Well, if you ain't airborne, you ain't shit." And he turned around and he walked back in, right? So McDade and I looked at us and we're like, "Woo!" So we went running back in and we went straight to our little recruiter guy and we told him what we wanted to do. And he's like, "Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, go over here and do this." And so they looked at our ears and made us, I don't know what they did, duck walk or something, and sent us back with a little airborne stamp. And so then he shows us the disc on what it is, and that was when we realized that we was jumping out of airplanes. We didn't really know what it was. I mean, we thought it was something like that, but we really didn't know for sure.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
so we signed up for needs of the Army, unassigned airborne. We said, "I don't care where you send me. We just want to jump out of airplanes because if you ain't airborne, you ain't shit." And
Okay.
so that's, me and McDade, man, we went through basic AIT and jump school together, and to first duty station, we deployed to war together. It was kind of cool to meet that guy that did so many things. I can't wait to interview him. I'm gonna interview him before long. I guarantee it. It's gonna be so
Okay.
much fun.
All right. So y'all had
Yeah,
the,
but
you had the same. So you come in. What was your first unit?
Bravo Battery, 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division.
Okay. And what year was this?
87. September, October of 87, I got there.
Okay. How was your leadership? Who was your leadership?
Oh, dude. My first squad leader, Staff Sergeant Arroyo. I did an episode with him not long ago, dude. Oh my gosh. He was on my ass, dude. I mean, on my ass. Like, wake up at 6 o'clock, in the morning. At 6 o'clock and 1 second. Boom, 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 boom. Marshal, get up. First call. And he expected me to open the door and be ready for inspection. And I was. And that's it went for 2 weeks, dude. He was in me, on me. He issued, like, day 2, he gave me a study guide and said, "Learn this." And I mean, he was just on me. He was just on me, on me, on me in a good way. Now, in a good way.
Okay.
Now, he
All
was
right.
Puerto Rican, and sometimes he would say things and mix English and the Spanish. And a couple times I said "No, Sergeant" when I was supposed to say "Yes, Sergeant," and that was not good. That was not good. He grabbed his rank, right, and he said, "I Staff Sergeant, I in charge. You push Fort Bragg up, down, all day long till I get tired. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I Staff Sergeant, I in charge. You understand me?" And I'm like, "Yes, Sergeant. Yes, Sergeant." Oh my gosh! But look, and then my senior gunner was Terry Rayner. He was a sergeant, a specialist, maybe like for like a week or two when I got there, and then he got promoted to sergeant. So I watched him like for 2 weeks, and like we were buddies or kinda, and then all of a sudden it was like, "Oh crap, how does this work?"
Right. 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 Right.
But he was a stud of all. You know Terry Rayner? You know him?
I've heard of him. I've never met him.
Oh my gosh, he's out there in Bliss too, and
Okay.
but he is. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, he took me and coddled me and showed me what was right and buffered me when Sergeant Arroyo was yelling at me. He said, "Hey, come on, it's okay." It was really cool, and I had a great First Sergeant Tom King. He was an old black hat. Great commanders. Just a blessed organization to go to. My first
So,
platoon sergeant was Pete Cuevas. It was great.
so what's something about Private Marshall that nobody knows? Anything that most people wouldn't know about Private Marshall? If we're gonna talk about Private Marshall, we're gonna talk about Sergeant Marshall, we're gonna talk about Senior NCO Marshall. What's one thing that's out there that probably nobody probably knows? Any crazy private story that you can think of?
Well, I've written about it. I've written about my cherry party. Uh, so we deployed to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, um, and it was our very first deployment. Right after I got there, it was for winter training, and it was cold. There was snow on the ground. We had done our training. It was like the last night or something, and I was tired. I went to bed. We were in the second floor of a World War II barracks upstairs. I had a sleeping bag that I was in, laid on top of a bunk, and I just kind of laid down and went to sleep. And next thing I knew, my sleeping bag was being zipped up, and they're tying a rope around my feet. And the whole time they were talking to me about how secure they were doing it, right? One of them is antagonizing me, but the other one is telling me, "Hey, I'm taking care of you. I got you. I've done this before. It's okay. Just trust me on this." Right? It was weird. It really was.
Uh,
And so they're going through the jump commands and the time warnings. And of course, sound off for equipment check. They all beat the crap out of me. Okay, okay, okay. They drag me across the floor. They get me to the door. They pick me up. Big guy's Coon was the ringleader in all of this. He's my friend on Facebook today. We've talked about it. He's got me up on his shoulders. He's holding onto the rope. It's a massive operation. Really, there's 6, 7, 8 people involved, and they threw me out the little fire escape up there. And I fell a little bit, and it was scary, no doubt, but it was all right. They lowered me down, and they dropped me about that far on my head, and somebody was there to grab me, and they dragged me over into the ditch. I had to holler out, "I'm a toe jumper, cut me free!" They made me yell that out, and
oh
the
wow.
MPs were below us, and the MPs were below us, and they were staying in the first floor. And they all just scattered and went back inside.
Wow, wow, man. Wow, wow.
And so they dragged me into the ditch, and then Matthews came out. He was my buddy. He was in the other squad. He was like the driver to the other squad. Like we were drivers together. He was the driver over there, and so he come and drug me out and helped me cut myself free, and we went back upstairs. And when I came upstairs, my squad leader peeked out of the NCO. Remember the NCO rooms at the end of the hallway, up in the barracks, and he peeked out to make sure I was, "You okay, Marshall?" I'm like, "Yes, yes, Sergeant, I'm good." He's like, "Okay, good night, man." I'm like, "Good night, Sergeant." And that was my cherry party. Yeah, that was something that most folks don't know about.
So what leader, as you were coming up and being mentored and things like that, what leader in that unit were you most impressed by or wanted to emulate probably the most? Do you have any, or leaders to that effect, in that particular unit? Usually your first unit is, in my opinion, is the unit that really kind of the most formative unit to me. Just one of the things I always think about, especially for the guys that do the long tenure, what we've done. It seems like the first unit is always something special. Do you remember anybody like that?
Oh yeah, Big Sarge, Frank Calderon.
Frank
Uh,
Calderon.
he's
Okay.
retired as a first sergeant. You know Frank Calderon? You know Frankie Calderon?
He was my first sergeant. Okay.
And he was my squad leader. And look, that guy went to bat for me. Let me tell you what he did. Let me tell you a couple things he did. One, he took me and made me a senior gunner. And if you know anything about Vulcans, and Vulcan's senior gunner is a very competitive spot. It's one of the toughest spots in the Army, in my opinion. Looking back on things, it's very similar to Bradley, Master Gunner, very similar to that. But the old school senior gunner for a Vulcan, Frank Calderon, taught me and gave me uh, he gave me the chance to do it, and I learned it. And he gave me positive feedback and praise. He also helped me get one of my big goals. I'd been in for 3 years. I had made sergeant with like almost minimum time possible, and I was on levy to go to Korea. But before I went to Korea, I wanted to be a jump master. I didn't want to. I wanted to go to jump master school, and I had gone and went to I got promoted in October, and I went to the pretest the next week. I mean, the
Wow.
first week as a sergeant, I went to take the pretest, and it just so happened when I had 2 months retainability in the division, I got a chance to go to jump master school just because nobody else in my battalion was pretest qualified.
Wow.
And Frank Calderon allowed me to go make my case in front of the battalion commander. I stood in front of the battalion commander and said, "Yes, sir, here's my slip. I want our slot. I know you have a policy about retainability. I know you have a policy about all this kind of good stuff, but I want to go to jump master school, and if you could waive that for me, I really would appreciate it." And they did. I went to jump master school. You know, I with 2 months after passing jump master school, I deployed to Korea for a year, and had to explain to everybody in Korea how I could be a jump master and not have a senior or master wings. That was wild.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
but yeah, that's a little bit about that. I don't even remember what the question was.
Well, just about the leaders that you had that had the most influence on you. Frank C.
Yeah,
I got you. Frank C.
Frank Calderon, dude. He, big Sarge, man. He just look. I love real talk, right? You and I, we always had real talk together. And
Yes.
any meeting we were at, you and I, we saw eye to eye. We could look at a situation, be in the same room together, and then when we left the room, we were like looking at each other, going, "Yeah, okay, I got it,
Yeah. Yep.
okay."
Yep.
And
That's
then all of a sudden, we didn't even have to talk about it.
right. Right.
Frank Calderon was one of those guys. Frank
Yep.
Calderon was one of those guys with me, just like you are. And I'm telling you, he showed me how to be a sergeant. Yeah, as a
Yeah.
staff sergeant, which he was, he showed me how to be a sergeant.
Awesome. Yeah, he was my first sergeant when I was sergeant first class. He took a chance on me and got me to aerosol school at Fort Pope from Fort Bliss. He just knew some people, and he just like literally hung his neck out, said, "Hey, if you go down there, you go get in school." That's pretty much all he said, you know. And that's how I got to airsoft school. But he hooked it up. He did it all by himself. It was no battalion commander or battalion sergeant. It was all him as a first sergeant with me, and he got me in airsoft school and made it happen. I exactly know what you're talking about. Yep. All right. So you move on to Korea, and what was that unit? What unit was you there?
Yeah, it was 1990, right as the Gulf War was kicking off and everything. I found myself in Korea in Bravo Battery, Camp Hovey, um SP Vulcan. Um, we fight tonight. Winter time. OMG. Some of the guys around me, Kent Maddox, Command Sergeant Major Kent Maddox was there with me. He was one of my big mentors over there. Um, Cranston, Cameron Cranston was over there with me. Um, I was a young sergeant and just learning how to be a sergeant and do all of those, all of those gunner um, drills that Calderon taught me. I took from Bragg to Korea, and I was a superstar.
Nice.
All
Yeah.
right. My first squad leader told me learn this book, and he sent me to those boards, and I mean, I won them all. I won them all. I did, and And so all that just, I'm telling you, dude, I firmly believe if you were a guy, a Bragg guy, and we did at that during that time frame, we did these laps to Korea. You go to Korea, go back to Bragg. Go to Korea, go back to Bragg. Going to Korea was like a victory lap for guys at Bragg. It was a time to relax and chill out, you know, because dude, Bragg, the op tempo was no joke. You were on support cycle, which meant you were pushing or pulling or doing detail, and there wasn't no break. And then you were on training cycle when you were at JRTC or somewhere training, or you were on mission cycle where you could your butthole was wound so tight because you couldn't even go to the mall without checking in every 30
Right,
minutes.
right,
You
right,
know,
right, right, right.
crazy times, crazy
So let's
times.
talk about that. So you probably leave from Korea, you come back to Bragg, right? I'm assuming that you probably did that, like most people
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Um, did you have any deployments into uh, danger zones and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we it was interesting. One of the first things I did as a private, we jumped into Honduras. Um,
Talk about
it
that.
wasn't a it wasn't a combat deployment, but we had bullets. You know, we didn't have blank adapters. I'll
Was
put it that
anything
way.
different
You
about
know,
that
it
jump?
was.
Can you, can you talk me through that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, dude, that was the hardest I ever hit, man. So we come out C-141s. Imagine just the sky filled with C-141s. I think there was 10. I we could go back and look it up, but I think there was 10 C-141s, one behind the other, in offset trail formation, and off we jump. You know, 120 in each of those aircraft, right? An entire task force. Again, it's not a combat jump, but I don't remember any blank adapters. I'll put it that way. And I look down and I'm screaming across the drop zone. You know, you're pulling your slip and I'm screaming. And we're all screaming across the drop zone. And so it's just like, okay, I guess it's going to be cool. And I look down, I see these wavy grasses, right? And I'm like, oh, this is easy, no big deal. So I lower my Alice pack, I lower my weapon, I pull my slip, I'm still screaming, and I hit, man, pow, pow, pow. I mean, I roll, and I hit hard. I pulled a can police assembly. I stopped being drugged. I only got drugged like, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet. I'm not that bad. I can get it, right? I practiced.
Mhm.
and and so there I am in a foreign country. You know, I got a little American flag on my thing that they pinned on us. They literally pinned on us an American flag. Okay. And I'm like, I'm thinking I'm an American soldier, you know, fighting for the forces to guard our country and my way of life. You know, I'm prepared to give my life in their defense. And I'm just like, and I look, and there's a family of people looking at me. They're just like right over, like 15 to 20 feet away from me. A whole family, like they're holding babies and kids and running in circles. It's the middle of the night. There's no night vision, okay? But
Okay.
I'm hurt. I'm like, oh gosh, you know, because I
Uh-huh.
hit hard. Dude, I jumped up, gathered up my stuff, rolled up my parachute, threw it over my back, thinking the whole time I'm an American fighting for the forces of God, my country, and our way of life. You know, I get out of the way. As soon as I got out of eyesight, I just fell down. Oh my gosh, what the heck? Because I was like, I can't let them see me hurt, you know,
Right.
upset,
Right. Right. Right.
discombobulated.
Right.
As soon as I got out of sight, though, I sat down and I was like looking around. I'm like, oh, where the hell
So
am I?
did
What's going
y'all
on?
was y'all in the right area? What
Oh yeah,
happened?
yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we exactly. It was perfect. They. So you got to understand, there's not a prepared drop zone in Honduras. This is
okay.
happens to be a family's field, and it happened to be right outside their backyard. Their
Oh
shack
wow.
was
Okay.
really just 35, 40 yards away from where I landed. They just
Mhm.
come out the back door and was like, "Oh, paratroopers, look!
Look,
You
look,
know,
look,
come
look.
on!" They had been told about it. They knew it was happening. It was like an event, you know. Call the uncles and aunts over. The Americans are coming, you know.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that, you know, that was I did. I almost got knocked out. I was hurt. But when I saw those people, man, I jumped up. I was like, I got to do the right thing. I got to represent.
Now, ain't that just when you really look back, ain't that so freaking crazy?
Hey,
I mean,
dude,
I
it
mean,
happens to this day. Remember, look, when you were a kid, what did your dad say? Dust it off, kid. Rub some dirt on it. Come
mhm,
on, keep going, right? Not
mhm,
once did you ever hear anybody say at the beginning in a real leader, the first thing out of their mouth ever is take a knee, sit down, relax. No,
yeah.
no,
That's
no. No,
yeah.
it's shut up. Let's go. Keep moving. It's you that have to say, I'm sorry, Sergeant, I can't do it, right? That you have to pull that trigger.
Right, right, right.
That was something my dad taught me. My dad taught me that. That was a valuable lesson from my dad. When you're hurt, say it. You know you're hurt. Nobody
Yeah,
else knows.
right.
And that was about my quitting. About my quitting. If he'd have been in town when that happened, it'd have probably been totally different. But
Mhm.
that's life, right? That's the way it goes sometimes. It was
Let me ask you
it's
this question because I got some stuff. My phone. I wrote some stuff down, but just out of curiosity, okay, how many jumps you have?
Oh, I have, I think it's 109 logged jumps on paper.
Okay, how many
I
jumps
got
you
more
have?
than that. I don't
Uh,
know. I don't know. I really don't. It's more than 109, but it's not 250, and
okay,
it's not 150. There's probably 10 or 12 that aren't logged at different times or whatever. You got to remember at one point I became an adult and enough to watch my own jump log. I
yeah,
kept my own jump log at some point. There's some of those jumps when I was a private though that did not get logged,
okay.
and we all know it. We all know it. That was just the culture at the time. It was an
Hmm.
interesting, it was early times in the army, So yeah,
So,
100 and
which
something.
which is a great segue into, uh, you're a black hat, right?
Yeah, yeah, that
And
was a
talk to me about
great
that.
job.
And from my knowledge, I know a little bit something about you. I know that you were, um, from my understanding, you was even the jump master of the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, talk to me about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't. So I was the NCO of the year for the 82nd Airborne Division in 1992.
Okay,
That was awesome. Okay, and then
this is after
after
Korea.
right after Korea, I came back to brag. I came to Charlie Battery, um, and, and First Sergeant Locklear calls me in his office and says, you're going to the NCO of the year board for battalion, representing our battery. And I told him I didn't want to, and he says, "You don't understand. You don't get that choice,
Mhm.
and so get your crap together." And so the next thing I know, I'm the NCO of the year for the 82nd Airborne Division.
Wow.
And dude, talk about a life changing kind of thing. To honestly, for an air defender, to go and do that competition and do all it entailed. I mean, day and night land nav, PT test, weapons qualification, CTT, board with all the command sergeant majors. And then they didn't tell us the winner for 7 days. They called us up on the back porch of the veranda in front of. They had the press. They had everybody there, and my name got called out, dude.
Wow.
And that was wild. That was wild. 1992. So 1992 is the year of the Marshal. My dad won Martin Marietta Employee of the Year. My little sister won New Teacher in the State of Florida Teacher of the Year award,
Wow.
and I won NCO of the Year for the 82nd Airborne Division.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you went on to be a black hat, right?
Yeah, so after that, I did that, and Maggot was leaving Advanced Airborne School. He had gotten levied to go to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and so I went and begged Command Sergeant Major Adams to let me go to replace him. And Adams, said, "Right, if that's what you want to do, okay." Look, the amazing guy. And so I did. I went down and tried out. I taught a class. I got to teach a 15-minute period of instruction to get picked up down there. You got to, try out. And so I did a 15-minute class on visual aircraft recognition. and got it together, and they took it. They said, okay, come on, and Staff Sergeant Papillo, Gus Papillo, was my trainer, and I became a trainee under rigorous development.
Training under
Uh,
rigorous development.
yeah, yeah, 30-day training period, and they give you a class for a jump master instructor. You either got fitting and wearing or nomenclature. I was a fitting and wearing guy. Gus Papillo was my mentor, and the bottom line of it is you had to learn a class verbatim, top to bottom. You had to be able to stand on a platform and give that period of instruction. It was basically about 50 minutes long, and you had to become an expert at everything about that class, such that if there was anything that they asked you that was anywhere pertinent to that class, if you didn't have an answer by the next day, you better have some kind of answer. And they drilled you about question and answer technique, grilled you about controlling the classroom, and also use that time to haze you, throw pizza bones at you, um, you know, call you names. Silly string was big back then. They would silly string your ass. Um, One time they let off a smoke bomb inside the classroom, and it got pretty bad in there. They got yelled at, but that was turd training. And then you do your hat class, and if they liked you and you did a good job, you get your hat. And so I got my hat. I was rookie number 13. Um, the rookie numbers is an interesting story. The At one point after the Gulf War, when everybody got back, there were so many rookies that were training to become black hats that out of a joke they started naming the rookies, just giving them a number. Like, we don't even know you. You're so silly. You're so stupid. We don't even want to call you by your name anymore. What's your number? You're rookie number 4, or whatever. So
Wow.
my rookie number was 13. The rookie numbers now, it's a tradition that's still going on. It's up in I think it's 500 now. I'm not sure.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, that's cool. That was 93. I was there when the C-130 and the F-16 collided and the crash happened there at Green Ramp, and
Mm.
all the soldiers died. I was there, watching them, burn and putting them out and loading them up on the things, and it was the worst day of my life. That was bad time. Anytime you're a witness to tragedy like that, and you see that stuff in your eye, right, in your brain, at all levels, I don't feel like I have nightmares or any kind of, lettered response to things like that. But
But you remember it.
I know that my memories are there, and that it's interesting to have witnessed that and understand that as part of what reality is, that I've seen with my eyes. And witnessed us moving down to the new school where the new area is, and so I was an old school guy and at the new school and the new procedures, and helped build that. During my time as a black hat, I wrote edition 5 of the ASOP. I was the guy that, my committee chief, Dan Bennett, looked at and said, okay, we have this book right here, which is edition 4 of the ASOP, and we want to put it on edition 5 on this floppy disk. Will Marshall, what do you think about that? And I'm like,
Oh wow.
I can do it. I can do it. So I hand scanned in, OCR'd, or typed every bit of the old manual, and then digitized it and rewrote all the procedures, put in all the
Wow.
pictures, did all the
Will, for
color.
real?
Yeah, I put well, not I, but me and Dan Bennett and our team, with me as the
Wow.
lead, I put edition 5 of the ASOP together. I built that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
great. When the
amazing.
first one came out, I had all of us sign it. I've still got it. It's got all of our Black Hat signatures on it that were on part of the team that did that. That was a big deal, dude.
Oh yeah,
That was a
definitely.
big deal.
I bet.
Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so what's
And
your
so
what's what's your um best black hat story with what's your best story you think of when you think of your time
you know,
there? Is there anything besides the tragic accident? And I'm not. What is there anything particular about a particular jump or um, candidate or anything like that you think of?
so so I'll never forget my turd. You know, John Thornton. Um, and it was fun being a trainer. You know, and that was awesome. I had an opportunity. Okay, I'll tell you two things. One was a huge mistake, and one was the other was a huge mistake. But I don't even know. It was amazing. So one, I had to tell a student that she smelled, and I had to send her home from training
Okay.
as a black hat. Um, Looking back on it, that was one of the worst things I ever did. I literally looked at this beautiful human being in the face and just said, "Listen, I don't know how else to tell you this, but there's so many complaints that you stink, and you need to go home and change, and you got 2 hours to be back."
Mm,
Uh, I tell you, looking back on it, I should never have done that ever. I should have waited till training was over, told the people that were doing it to just shut up and suck it up, and gotten with her one on one later and told her about it or did something like that.
mm,
That's one memory that me as a real human being that knows about another person's feelings that I did that so wrong. I did that so wrong. The other thing was I had a lieutenant colonel scream at me at the top of his lungs that he wanted to speak to an adult after I told him that he had failed our course. Um, at the time, I was a sergeant. One of the interesting things about my time in service is I spent 6 years as an E5 promotable.
mm.
Not 6 years as an E5. I spent even more as an E5. I spent 7 years as an E5, but I spent 6 years as an E5 promotable.
Okay.
It was a time when our promotion points were all
What's so high?
crazy, the Gulf War drawdown. I refused to cheat on correspondence courses. Um, I didn't have any college, and I was just doing it at night,
Mm,
and you know how that goes. And
right.
this was before colleges came up with, dude, they'll give you an associate's degree now for coughing, uh,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
I was toiling out classes, to try to get an associate's degree,
Hmm.
and but anyway, uh, so yeah, I was a sergeant there, and I was the deputy committee chief. The way that we did it was your seniority and talents. If you had been there longest and you were the right guy for the job, you became the deputy committee chief regardless of rank. At the time, I had two stick leaders that were sergeant first classes, and I was the deputy committee chief. I was a sergeant. Dan Bennett was on medical leave. He had just had knee surgery, and he was the committee chief. And the commander and the first sergeant were not around anywhere. They had left the building, I guess, for the day. It was a jump day. We had just jumped and graded, and so it was almost dark. It was late in the afternoon, and I flew. All right, so this battalion commander, he was a sitting battalion commander, okay, in the 82nd Airborne Division.
Whoa.
All right, he had
Whoa.
13 jumps, Okay, he had 13 jumps. The minimum you needed, okay, actually today he had 14 jumps. The minimum to attend Jumpmaster School is 13. Okay, yesterday he jumped and he got 14 jumps. Okay, I know this. When he was a jump master in the door, the grader yesterday says, I can't. This guy's not going to pass. He is so scared. He does not know what he's doing. He is scared. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll fly. Okay, I'm not the grader. You're the grader. Actually, I got him. I know what happened. I got him a new grader the next day. I said, you're the grader, not me. But I'm here. I'm watching. And I got up on the ramp that day, and we flew. And look, the guy didn't fall on the floor and start crying, okay? But he was not ready to be a jump master on an aircraft in charge of people because he just wasn't there, okay?
Right.
He just wasn't there, okay? And there's a catch-all term that's called displays fear or panic in the paratroop door. There's no other way to say it than it's not that he didn't do the procedures right. It was the main thing was that he wasn't getting out of the aircraft to look and get a good, we call it a weak peek. You know, he was just like doing one of these, right? And part of getting out and being a safe paratrooper is getting all the way out of the aircraft so that you can look to the rear and look below you and make sure there's no hazards. He was told about that, and he was trained. I personally told him, looked at him in the eye, and, you know, before all this, he knew why I was flying. In a way, deep down inside, I'm telling you, he did.
Right.
Well, look, when the grader came and turned in the grade sheet at the end of the flight, the grader said that he displayed fear panic in the paratroop door, and I could not agree with my grader, right? I had to back my grader. And look, I saw it with my own eyes.
Right.
I saw it myself.
Right.
And so I looked at him straight in the eye and said, sir, you and I were on that aircraft together. I said, I talked to you about the things that you needed to do and what we were concerned about you getting out of the aircraft and making sure that we were clear to the rear and downward, all the way out, remember? And I told you about getting that elbow all the way out there and what was going to happen if you didn't get out there all the way the first time. My grader was going to tap you on the elbow, and we was going to remind you. And next time you were going to make sure you got all the way out there, right, sir? Because we want you to be a battalion commander. And this is a sergeant now.
Yeah.
We want you to continue to be a battalion commander in what's going on because we understand the stakes and everything. And he looked at me in the eye and said, yeah. And let me tell you, when he got in that door, he was not prepared to do that.
Right.
And he did. He exited that aircraft, and he was issued his grade by his grader, and that he failed. And he was given his. He was told that he needed to come inside to see the table to get his reentry slip. And he came into that office, and he looked at me and started screaming at the top of his lungs that he wanted to see an adult, that he wasn't going to deal with me, that he wanted to see an adult. And oh my gosh, it was amazing. It was just amazing. I wrote a whole essay about it. You can read about it. It's really interesting. But long and short of it is, there was a one-star general down there with him, and another full bird colonel the next day apologizing to all of us for the actions of that battalion commander.
Wow.
And that battalion commander found a different job.
Wow.
It was a very interesting thing, and that let me know.
Man, that took a lot of courage. But that took a lot of courage on your part, man. That says a lot about you. And it wasn't about just, showing off. It's just about courage, about what you believe in and what you know was right. And that says a lot about you. It says a lot about you.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, it's a whole organization. Let me tell you something. There's no better organization than the Advanced Airborne School Black Hats. Let me tell you something. To this day, they are top notch. They're hand selected. It's not some DA selected something to go down there. It is hand picked. You got to go through turd training. It's not the same turd training, but it's similar to do it right, because We don't put out bad information. We're there to teach. Let me tell you, the commanding general stands behind you, and even better, the division command sergeant major just stands behind the instructors, and
Wow,
it's a great organization. Yeah.
that's amazing. So I got a couple more questions here. I wanted to make sure because I got so much here. So as you furthered along in your career, um, would you say that experience as a black hat propelled you, helped you? Um, did it do anything for you? Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, yeah. So, look, they trained me in a way that people could understand. I have a certain amount of communication skills to begin with that are fairly well, and I do pretty good. But to say that standing on a platform for 30 days, getting yelled at by your peers about exactly how you say this or that, doesn't help you to get better at it, then that's one thing. Um, yeah, another thing that being a black hat allowed me to do was to know that deep down inside I was an expert at something. I was
Yeah,
a world renowned expert,
yeah,
top of the top of the top. And it's interesting to look at that and say, "Oh wow, there's nobody better at that." But one of the things also though, and Ben, you'll recognize this, dude, every unit that we were in were top notch, great units. And we had the opportunities to be such great winners because of the system that was put around us, right?
right.
That if you were just willing to show up on time, shine up your boots a little bit, and agree to pull your load, that dude, we had some great friggin' units, man.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. You think that if you went back and saw what would you, if you saw your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Oh my gosh. Wow. All right. If I saw my 18-year-old self, what would I tell him? Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. I don't even know. Condoms? I have no idea. I have no idea.
uh,
Look, uh, I really think that our world evolves the way we want it. I believe that we are the orchestrator of the things that are going on. That deep down inside, somewhere, there's somebody that's helping us. And if we will just go forth in love and do what, if we will blossom our flower and do what we're driven to do, over time we end up in a place of love and harmony and peace. When we sit around and point fingers and yell at somebody else and blame somebody else for things that you perceive that were done to you. Listen, I've listened to enough army stories to know that my own memory sucks, okay?
no,
And so to hold yourself to these old stories that may or may not be true after all these years about what Charlie did to you or what Jimmy did to you or what Cindy said to you, as human beings, I think that we can do better if we'll train ourselves to do better, and but it takes active training. We can't sit around here and think that
so,
Jesus is
so
going to
this
come
this
back
is
and
what you
fix
would
it.
tell your 18-year-old self.
Yeah,
Is
I
this
guess
this is this
I'm
what you would
just
tell?
rambling. Yeah, I'm just rambling.
Because my next question, and remember this one, my next question is, um, what is the most important thing you've learned in your military life that you would like to share on this platform?
Oh, your brotherhood, man. Look, look. There, you cannot. All right, as an air defender, as a SHORAD air defender, we were so competitive with each other that we forgot how awesome we were together. Every Stinger team, every Vulcan squad, every SHAP, every Duster, every Juliet crew, everybody on SHORAD worked separately and competed against each other for some known prize. It might be a trophy, it might be an award, but everybody wanted to be Top Gun, right? That's what we wanted to be. Um, that's an interesting kind of concept, and it drives success. But at the same time, it drives you to look at each other as rivals. So, what I would love to do is to continue to look at all of those peers of mine that were supposedly rivals back then and make sure that deep down in my head, I see them as my true teammates.
Okay.
My
That's a good
true
point.
teammates.
Very good
Yeah.
point. Um, what is your so you're probably gonna have some people that's gonna watch this that may still be um, on active duty, um, and you're probably gonna have some people that's could could use a tip or two. What's the best tip for that you would give somebody in their defense? And I guess you probably just gave it, but what's the best tip you would give somebody currently on active duty? Um, what would you give them?
Yeah, look for that mentor. Look for that person that uh, is doing the right thing and has that right heart, and just follow them. Just watch them. Just absorb anything you can from them. And one of the things I wish I'd have done more was office calls. I wish I would have spent more time in different sergeant majors' offices.
Mm,
Not because I saw it as brown nosing in a way, and of course because I won all the little of the years and all that stuff, I was careful about being seen as a brown noser. But looking back on it, I wish I'd have brown nosed a little more. I wish guys like Sergeant Major Rogers and I had a better relationship than we do. He was my platoon sergeant, but when I got up and he's like the branch sergeant major, I didn't take the opportunity to go see him. I felt like,
right,
oh, he's the branch sergeant major, but now I'm the guy that should have been knocking on his door, going, look, you made it. Congratulations.
right, right, right,
But
right.
it was a messed up mentality.
Yeah,
I'm not worthy to go up there.
and then that's something that you just said there. A lot of people may not understand what the brown nosing thing is. They just saw it, but you look at that in the military, but then out here in this sector, it's not even remotely the same, because you have to network with people. You have to make sure the right person knows and right all these different things. But in the military, it was shunned upon and your brown nose and all this other stuff. And it's so critical, but you're right. I think that's a good tip that you could give somebody. Hey, look, take that time to get a mentor, do some office calls, get to know somebody. Um, in the long run, it only helps you. It does not harm you, um, in no way, shape, or form. That doesn't. All right. Um, Senior NCO Marshall. What what would you say about that experience as a senior SEO, senior non-com, from platoon sergeant on up, and how did you feel how that went for you?
So I had an interesting start to being a senior NCO. I was a staff sergeant. Um, it was 1999. I just won. I was competing for the Jump Master of the Year competition. Um, that was one of the ones that, believe it or not, I wanted to do. Of course, I'd written the test. There was no way I was going to lose the Jump Master Year competition for the 82nd. It was just because I had written all the stuff, done the Jump
Yeah,
Master course, done all of it, right? And so of course they said, yeah, go do it. And so I won battalion and brigade, and then went to division. And in the middle of that, um, let's see, how do I put this? Okay, so a little bit before that happened, my battery commander come to me and asked me to leave my squad leader position as a Avenger squad leader and take over headquarters platoon, because they needed a little bit of help and leadership and guidance in the headquarters platoon. And so I agreed to do it. And so I left the Avenger Squad and went to take over the headquarters platoon. Like 2 months later, the platoon sergeant that was my platoon sergeant before I left got diagnosed with cancer in his calf. He had a tumor in his calf that was growing, and um, and Hunter high fived me and said, "Yeah, but man, take care of him." The commander asked me if I would take the platoon because they were getting emergency deployed to Kosovo, to Albania, and then to Kosovo in '99. One of those. Load up the AT4s, load up all of it. Man, we rolled. And what happened was I was in the middle of the competition, so my platoon deployed, and the next week after I won the competition, the CG and the sergeant came down to the battalion, gave me the little award on my day. I got on a plane and went to Albania. And so that's how I started my platoon sergeant stuff. And I became a platoon sergeant. I had an Avenger squad, Avenger platoon, 4 Avengers. We deployed to Albania and then Kosovo as part of the peacekeeping mission. It was, another real bullets kind of thing. We were locked and loaded, clearing barrels. One of the things I'm very proud of, we were the only platoon size element in the entire organization that did not have an accidental or negligent discharge.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool. I was proud of that. We really, dude, that's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. And it shows a lack of training, a lack of discipline. And so we drilled that. So I'm proud of that. But we were in and out of the wire. We patrolling, doing dismounted and mounted patrolling. This was way back when. This was wild west. We got shot at. We took cover. We didn't return. What happened? We were patrolling down a little road and at night, and about 2 blocks up, there was this little white sedan that was coming down the road, and he was coming pretty slowly, and he turns and stops in the middle of the intersection. We see this barrel come out the window, and we all scatter on both sides of the roads, and he goes, pow, 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 and some of the windows behind us shatter, and then he was gone. Nobody returned fire. We didn't really feel like we were necessarily in danger, really. I mean, looking back on it, it was like, oh, come on, but talk about heart pumping now, So
Right.
that was cool. But so we deployed over there. We did our time. It was amazing. We, personnel struggles. 3 staff sergeants, me, and 2 squad leaders. Were all like, I wasn't promotable. Just last week I was a squad leader, just right with them. It's just. But we made it work, man. Great guys, great folks, great people. My driver went over without his freaking glasses. He couldn't see for crap, so I had to drive everywhere until he got his glasses over there,
Mm.
And then came back, and then I went to JRTC, and I was an OC at JRTC. That's where I made Sergeant First Class. As an OC at JRTC, and that was great times, man, dude. In and out of the field, on the radio with your brothers. Talking about brotherhood, you could build a brotherhood over the radio. Cops are brotherhood because of their call signs on the radio. It's a really neat thing. OCs at JRTC are much the same. You kind of got God in the Zulu land that tells you what's going on, and all you got to do, it's the easiest job in the world. All you do is just sit around and give suggestions, and nothing
Right.
else.
Right.
But I learned a lot about leadership there, about how to motivate folks, how to talk to people, how to give AARs and all that stuff. That's what that was about. A lot about how do you self-discover things but we all knew what the all answers were. All the answers were
Right.
all priorities of work and
Right.
task and purpose,
Yeah,
and
but you got to
all the
get them
little
to say
things.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I do that
And then
today.
I went and bit. I was then I went to officer basic course and became an OBC instructor. 2003 or so, and that was great. So I was a sergeant first class, just left OBC, or just left JRTC, so all the tactics and all the stuff and all the latest things. And you go to OBC, you're paired up with a captain, and you teach these young lieutenants. And I did that for a couple of years. That was very valuable, very fun, very amazing. You get to touch the very best of America, our young officer corps, at every level, as that
And
you
and
can't
where
get
was
any
this at?
better.
Will, where was this at?
Bliss, Fort
At
Bliss,
Bliss. Okay.
Building 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I was paired up with Captain Lee from Canada, Tom Lee. Him and his beautiful wife are amazing, absolutely amazing. And like I was talking earlier about, seeing things on the same thing. Tom Lee and I saw things on the same wavelength, and
Is that where you made E8 at?
so no, when I was a first sergeant in 552 when I actually made the E8 list. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, so I was a sergeant first class there, taught officer basic course. One of the things that Burnley and I did at officer basic course, we were given the leeway to rewrite the field problem. We did the whole field problem so that we could take it to a more contemporary operating environment. We put, made them do cordon searches and, understand about, you know, instead of taking it from the old infantry stuff more to situational based stuff where they had to solve problems as teams. And well, we're very proud of that. Very proud of that. And at some point, 552, a slot became open over there, and Sergeant Major Parker invited me to be on his team over there, and I went over there and took HHB as a non-promotable sergeant first class, and I took Hockenberry's spot. So when Tim Hockenberry left, I slipped into probably one of the best oiled machines you could find. Hockenberry had it rolling. And of course 552 had a legacy that was just coming out of from the 507th, and we were getting ready to go to Korea, and so I took over HHB as a non-promotable E7, and shortly thereafter got picked up on the next 8 list and pinned on the diamond, and then moved over and took Heather Smith's battery, Bravo battery. And that's when we got ready to deploy and went to Korea, and that's when I met you over there.
Okay. That don't happen too often. Sergeant first class and in front of a HHB. So that just says again, more about you, even more. You don't see that. You don't see that often. So that just is incredible. And then you guys, you had a time in Korea with, I think you were what battery you had? You had
Bravo. I had Bravo.
Bravo 2-1. Okay.
Yeah.
That's when I was HHB, and you go on from there to Fort Hood.
Yeah.
And how was that transition? Because I didn't go with you guys. I ended up going to Japan. You guys went back to Hood, and I know you had us Command Sergeant Major, Arnold, right?
So we had Eimer.
Heimer.
Eimer. Remember Eimer? You remember Eimer?
I do.
Oh,
I do.
Great. Yeah. So we had. I went back to Hood. Hood was wild. When we left, we were supposed to go from Bliss to Korea and back to Bliss.
Yeah, I remember that. And then they changed
the family stabilization. Yeah, we had everybody locked, everybody's floating, everything's good. And then halfway through, they're like, changey. You're going back to Hood. So we got to pick up all of our families, Some of them they moved in advance. It was just a
That
mess, dude.
that was one
A
of the most
mess.
craziest, and I'm gonna just say it on the record, the dumbest thing I had ever known about. Like it was just I just didn't understand. I was like, oh my goodness. But anyway, I'm gonna let you speak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so what happened was they were making a big deal about unit moves and that we were going to start a unit life cycle, and that they were going to provide stabilization for the families. And I mean, they sold it to us, man. They
Yeah,
sold us the whole hook and line. And so we moved
yeah,
our families to El Paso. We were all happy. People made long term commitments because they knew that they were going to be there through 2 full rotations. At least that's what the plan was. And dude, we get 6 months into it, and we get this message. It says we're going to Hood, and it's like a balloon just let out of some people. But yeah, that was an interesting time. That was an interesting time. So I go back to Hood, and I was one of the first people that got there. I took a short leave and showed up there to get all these new people, because not only were we being filled by the old, our old folks that were coming from Korea. Some of those folks were leaving, but we were getting a whole batch of brand new folks.
yeah,
And let me tell you something, that batch of brand new folks, they were a lot of trouble.
yeah.
They were a lot of trouble because they got there at a time where we had no mission, we had no equipment. Our equipment was being refit, and we were supposed to get equipment from somewhere else, and it hadn't got there yet. And so we're all sitting around there twiddling our thumb. What's a 14 Tango do with no truck? What do you do? What do you do?
Get in
And
trouble?
yeah, and so yeah, it was, and of course we're at Hood, okay, the murder capital of the world.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so it was around that time when I had 22 years in the military. They had changed the requirements and what it was going to do and how long it was going to take to make command sergeant major and actually be a battalion command sergeant major. They were saying that if at the way where my place was in line at that time, there was no way I was going to I was going to become a battalion sergeant major before I had 28 years in the Army.
Wow.
Okay, and so I remember I was sitting there with almost 22 as a first sergeant, and I said, you know what? That's it. I'm done. I'm gonna go do something else. And so I'll never forget it. I was in a meeting, in a staff meeting, and I walked out, and I walked into Command Sergeant Major Eimer's office. I said, tomorrow morning I'm gonna have my retirement paperwork on your desk. I'm I can go do different things now. I don't want to continue to do this.
What was
And
his response?
okay, Will, sounds good. Sounds good, bud. Fine, no problem. No problem. Hey, when you stop by before you come over to the house tonight, you get me a 12-pack. Got Coors
Yeah.
Light. Okay, all right, son, baby.
I figured that'd be something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
that's him.
look, but look, with Eimer and I,
You
Eimer
know
was
what you're getting
one
with
of those
him.
guys.
I
Yeah,
liked him because you know what you was getting with him. There wasn't
yeah,
no shadiness. You knew exactly what you was coming down the pipe.
yeah. And so he didn't fight me. Look, you've been around people enough to know that when somebody's mind's made up, you listen to them and
Yeah,
you're gonna say what you're gonna say. But I don't know. I know when people are wishy washy and when they're not wishy washy, and
right.
it's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I retired. Uh, they were
So,
talking about sending me to Japan to that radar, and I said nah. Let me go ahead and do something else. So that's when I retired and started selling body armor.
okay. Before we end on your military career, want to ask you this. I got two questions actually. So, what's something throughout your military career that people seem to misunderstand about you? that you would want to just set the record straight if there's anything? If there is anything.
Hmm.
I got two questions. That's
Yeah, I don't
that's
know.
one.
Okay. Yeah, so I always felt like in a way that I was labeled, oh, he's just a bored soldier. Oh, he's just good at answering questions and shining his boots. Um, I get it. I get it. Yeah, I get it. But, look, I was given a challenge by my first squad leader, and I was given a challenge by lots of people, through my career. And one of the things that I noticed very quickly about me, if a serious person gives me a serious challenge, I'm going to seriously consider it. And I'm honored. I'm honored when somebody goes out of their way to challenge me. Somebody that I respect. Okay, now not somebody that's just yelling from across the quad or something, but a real mentor that says, I have some of them in my life that look at me deep down and say, "Your next step is here," and I go, "Huh?" But after a while, it's like, and it might not be exactly like they said, but it's your yeah, they're helping us. Our mentors help us. They see things that we don't see.
Right. So last question here. All right. Um, so, and I'm going to set the tone for this question. I've always learned, it's something I learned a long time ago. It's about, it's all about the room that you're invited to. All right. An example being, you know, um, you were invited into a room as a black hat. All right. That was a special room by itself. And most times when you're in a room that's with excellence and things of that nature, it comes to a time where you're looking at the next room that you will be invited into. You know, um, the chapter of the military is closed. It's been something very honorable. It's a legacy. It's just beyond what you could probably imagine. But what's the next room that Will Marshall wants to be invited into?
I think the next room that I am interested in getting invited into is a room where we talk about really changing our minds about what's valuable in this world and beginning to change, like really change about what we think is important to us. I think that we're on the verge of the end of things. When I see that guitars have been perfected so much that you just can't make one any better, to where now they're going all carbon, and it's just the beauty and the art of all of it is getting to the point where we have so many things that they become less important, like they used to be. When I was a kid, it seemed like I got a toy a year. Really, it seemed. I'm sure it was different, but it seemed like that was the way. Nowadays, I mean, my grandbaby doesn't want I put knee pads on my grandbaby so she didn't suffer knees up. Come on now. And my grandbaby's got a million toys, and my grandbaby will never want for anything. But I wonder if that's too much. I wonder if that's the wrong thing. I think we need to be training our minds to look at our young flowers that are being born and finding ways to let them blossom, rather than point at them and tell them that you're a sinner saved by grace when they're, you a youngster. They haven't done anything wrong. The thing they've done wrong is what you think they've done wrong, mom or dad, or somebody else that's going to judge them. And I would love to see our minds change where we start thinking of each other as beautiful flowers that are creations of God, not as fallen sinners from grace.
Wow.
Because some some Bible says that there's some story about this, that, or the other. We trade our heaven now for some future something, something that's, look. If Jesus was talking about what would happen when we died, wouldn't there be a hell of a lot of suicides they were talking about around that time?
Oh yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's not what he was talking about. He was providing miracles in the moment, and I'm telling you, we're capable of that now. We're capable of miracles. We just have to change our mind. We just have to, guys like me and you, guys that understand each other and that love each other. Dude, if you called me tonight and said, Will, I need you here, I'm friggin' there,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's the same way it
Yeah.
goes. And there's guys, there's brothers like you and me all over this country, all over this world that kind of know what we're talking about. We have to, somebody asked me the other day, Ben, they said, they're bombing us at the airport and blah, blah this and that and everything, and what do you think? And I'm like, let's gather up our toys, pick up our brass, and let's skedaddle on out of there. Our former warriors aren't blowing us up. This is some outer third party that's just trying to f with us.
Yeah.
Just gather our stuff, let's get out of here, quit pointing and yelling, and let's bring our boys home and move on to the next
Yeah.
chapter, because that's what we're going to do
Yeah.
anyway. We should have never been in there in the first place, and we all knew that. We all know that.
So that's the discussion I just had today. I just had that discussion today. It's like, well, should we have ever been there? I mean, so that's the question. But that's probably a different conversation. Maybe not for this forum, but Will, it's been real. It's been great. Before I close this thing out, is there anything that we did not discuss that you would want to say in this interview?
Yeah. So first, thank you, man. It is such an honor to think that you might want to talk to me, right? That you might want to ask me some questions. Who am I? I don't know. None of us think of ourselves as anything but just, hey, I'm just doing what I'm led to do, right? But that's what leads me to know that we're in our own heaven if we just allow it to be. If we would just decide that we're where we're supposed to be and smile and look around to our brothers and sisters and say, how can I help you? We get so caught up in some story that we tell ourselves that it's silly. It really is silly. And I hope that over time that we can find a way to just see each other a little bit differently, right? I want to wake up and think I am a spiritual being and having a human experience, not, oh, my knee aches and I want to go back to sleep. Okay? I believe that if I change my mind, I can decide to be happier, every day. One of the things, Ben, that I'll leave us with right now that's in my mind is one of the things in the Course in Miracles says, one of the ways you know that you're doing the right thing as a teacher is when people think of you, do they feel peaceful thoughts? That's how you know if you're being a good teacher. And so I've been working on that. The other thing that I think that is beneficial to talk about, Ben, is that I've really been focusing on my significant other, my love partner, the one who is supposed to be the yin to my yang. And I've concentrated on her flower blossoming, allowing her flower to blossom. When she says, I think we should do this, my first reaction is automatically, yes, I think so. Let's do it. Until she sees her own obstacles and not me be the one providing the obstacles. Let me be the yes person. Let me be the sunshine and the water and the good fertile soil that's been fertilized for my flower to grow. And over the past couple of years, it's been great. It's what she's doing. If you look at the art projects around the community and the pools and the different, the paintings, a painting right there, that's hers,
Wow.
she's an artist and she's blossoming right, in front of my eyes, and I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying the thought of that, and I'm enjoying a great relationship with my children and my parents and my grandchildren. My grandchild, and I know I got more coming soon. I know
Oh
it. I know
wow.
it. I know
Okay.
it. I
So
think
far,
so.
none here.
Yeah, I do know. It's just, I'm telling you, dude, it'll change your world. It will
It's
change your
it's
world.
coming. My
It's a
son's
different
29,
thought.
so I know it's coming.
Yeah, it's a different thought. Uh, I really think that uh, that my next room that I walk into is a big room, and it's filled with lots of people, and they're people like you, and they're relationships that mean something, and I pray that this momentum of this cool stuff that I'm doing keeps going. I believe that the market, the real value of this is not necessarily telling stories of the people that I know. It's eventually going to be all kinds of people telling all kinds of stories about all kinds of things, because you know as well as I do, the postman, the milkman, the butcher, everybody's a hero. Everybody's got a story to tell. Everybody's got a challenge everybody's got a mountain that they climb. Some of them are out in the public view. Some of them are behind the scenes. I mean, how many caregivers do we know, right, that are heroes? How many do we know that all they do is make bologna sandwiches all day, okay, and take care of people and love people, and those are the folks that I want. I want this stuff for our grandkids. And so we got a little coin in the box and the thumb drive and the T-shirt, and it's all donations. Okay, I don't want to put any price tag on anything. I can't put price tag on my time.
Mhm.
I can't. And so it's me and Benson now. It's just the two of us, and we're rocking and rolling. We're loving it. And he's doing all the shipping and stuff, and I'm doing all the digital editing and video, and I'm running the little washer dryer business, and fixing washers and dryers on the weekdays, and it's a lot of fun, man.
Will's been real. You're a very special person. I appreciate you for letting me be a part of this. Um, I've learned a lot today. And man, just keep doing what you're doing. There's so many of us appreciate you for doing what you do. So thank you. I say again, thank you. And with that, I will I will sign it off. Thanks, my
My
friend.
pleasure. My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Take care.